In this video, I'm going to talk about how to assemble the sole of the shoe for your enlarged cardboard form. The blue tape is on here because I had taped the pieces together just to kind of make sure that they were about the right fit. I also cut two soles out for the shoe, and I'll show you why in a second, but I was shy of some cardboard, so I just taped two pieces together, put another sheet of cardboard on the back for stability, and glued that together. And that way I was able to get the right size cardboard. And a reminder, that's the sole of the shoe where I showed you how you could use the corrugation for a textural design element. So what I'm going to do is glue the band around the base of the shoe. And so here I'm just sort of testing and measuring the fit. I did not transfer my notch marks onto my cardboard pattern, and so I'm just kind of eyeballing it a little bit to see where the fit goes. I'm going to tape together that piece just to kind of hold it in place so I don't have to struggle with it so much. And I'm going to take some scrap cardboard and just cut it into little rectangles. And what I'm going to do is use those as little braces to glue the band of the shoe to the sole of the shoe. Now, because I cut out two soles of my shoe, I'm actually going to be placing one on top of this band, and so you're not going to see the interior of the shoe at all. So I'll continue moving around the base with the tabs, but also you can see that I will sometimes put a bead of glue in between those bands, or a couple dots of glue. And you do have to hold these in place for probably 15 to 20 seconds to assure that they dry and are actually getting a secure bond. And you don't need a lot of those tabs. I mean, it really depends on how much tension there is in the form and what exactly you're trying to achieve through using those to help hold it together. If you look up close, you can see just those little tabs and then dots of glue along the edge to help hold them together. So now I'm pulling out the front piece. The front band has a little bit of a curve to it at the top, and that curve will pull the tip of the toe box up. And so because of that, that's going to create a little bit of tension within the cardboard as it starts to pull up. It's going to be harder for me to tape it in place. So I'm just going to work with the tabs, holding it in place and moving my way around from the left side to the right side. So I've not slowed the video down. This is actually real time. I just want you to see or sort of feel how long it actually takes for the hot glue to bond. So one of the things that I sometimes will do with hot glue is that I will put it on my piece of cardboard and then let it set for 5 or 10 seconds before I put it onto the cardboard. And that will allow the hot glue to cool down a little bit, just so I don't have to hold it quite as long. But in this instance, I actually held it way too long, and the hot glue cooled before it had a chance to really do its full bond. And so you can see right there, it popped off. So that's what happens if you wait too long for your hot glue before you put it onto your form you're assembling. So instead of just working with that piece, I was able to pull it off because, again, the hot glue had cooled pretty significantly. So I'm going to just start over with a new piece. If it pops off that easily, that really means there wasn't a strong bond. So there's about 5 seconds that I held it, much less than last time. And then because this piece has a little bit of tension, it's curling up at the toe box. I really want to make sure that before I release my compression of the two pieces together, that it actually has cooled, and so that it's at its full strength. This was probably about 15 to 20 seconds. And so I just kind of want you to feel the slowness of what is happening here, since I always speed up the videos. Just kind of know that it's slow going, and you have to have patience. And sometimes you make mistakes, and that's all part of the learning process. So for this one, I didn't really wait for the glue to cool down. I'm just holding it right in place. That might mean I have to hold it a little bit longer than the 15 to 20 seconds before it cools. Again, this piece has another, it's holding a little bit of extra tension, and so I really want to make sure it's nice and strong before I release my clamping. Okay, so I'll continue the rest of that process. Those top pieces really were the ones that were holding the most tension. And once I complete these little brackets, these little kind of tabs, I'll do the same thing I did to the other shoe, which is to put those little dots in between the tabs. Okay, made my way around the form, and after I get all those glued together, I need to put the sides. And I wanted to show you there are some ways that you can clamp your pieces. You could use tape. You could just hold it like I am, or you could also get one of these little spring clamps. Binder clips, I guess is what they're called. And you could just use a binder clip to quickly hold something together. I have corrugation here, and the binder clip actually might be powerful enough to kind of indent the corrugation. So when I go to bond these two pieces together, you'll see that I realized, oh, maybe I should grab a little scrap sheet of cardboard, so that if the binder clip is going to cause an indent, it's on that scrap of cardboard. All right, I'm ready to put the next layer of the sole of the shoe onto the form. And this is where I realized that I've got a little bit of trouble up at the toe box. There's a little bit extra material. It wants to go out, and it needs to go straight up and down. So I'm kind of problem solving here. Should I cut it? Should I squish it? Should I fold it? My pattern piece just needed adjusting at that point where I folded the two pattern pieces together. So I should make a note on that pattern piece to remind myself the next time I go to make a giant cardboard shoe that I need to adjust that angle. So what I was just doing there was measuring the depth of the shoe, and I'm going to make a couple braces that will go on the inside of the shoe, so that when I go to put the next layer on, it has something to kind of hold or resist against. So what I'm doing here is measuring 1 1/4, 1 1/4, and 1 1/4. I haven't cut all the way through the cardboard, and this allows me to just fold it. I've left a little extra tab, and then I can put a little bit of glue just on that tab. And it's a lot quicker to make a spacer when you just halfway cut through the cardboard and then use that as a little flexion. Okay, so that's one thing that you could do. The other thing that you could do is you could simply cut layers and stacks of cardboard to get to the thickness that you want, and then you could glue those together. So I need 1 1/4, and it was about 8 sheets of cardboard, and I'll just hot glue those together, and then I have another spacer. So I'm just going to repeat this and make a couple different versions. I also just want to show you, you could use Elmer's glue, PVA glue. You could use, you know, something else besides the hot glue if you wanted. And actually that goes for your whole shoe. You can use Elmer's glue, PVA glue, and tape as a clamp to hold it together. And here I'm just putting a piece of tape around it to dry. The Elmer's glue wall will probably take about 20 to 30 minutes to set. And so that's where that tape can be nice to kind of hold it and clamp it into place. So how many you make is really up to you. I'm not planning on actually stepping on this shoe for stability, so I don't need the whole thing to be supported, but I do want to have a couple places where I can anchor the top sole of the shoe on so it doesn't collapse and fall in. I don't ever glue on top of the blue painter's tape because that's not going to give me full strength of the glue. So whenever possible, remove that. Okay, so the next thing that I did is that I cut these little thin strips of cardboard, and I'm going to glue them along the inside ridge of that band. I've dropped it down just enough so that it's the thickness of the layer of cardboard, and that way that next sole will be inset. One of the things I later regretted was that I didn't drop that a little bit lower, and when you watch the next part of this video you'll see why. When I go to put the back of the shoe and the top of the shoe on, it would have been really nice if I had just a little bit of a ledge to hold the tension of those shoes as I was working. So next time I would drop this maybe double that. Instead of just the thickness of the cardboard, I would drop it 2 thicknesses of cardboard. You can glue those thin little strips. You can also put the glue directly on the interior band. Might be a little less of a glue hazard. Okay, the toe box has a tighter curve, and so I just need to make shorter strips. So I've glued about 4 of these little 2-inch strips in there. And again, this video is shortened down to 17 minutes, but this whole process, just for the base of the shoe, probably took about an hour. And there were lots of pauses along the way and sort of head scratching and what would be the best approach. So I'm feeling pretty good about this, and now I'm ready to start assembling it together. I have decided to put hot glue on those 3 spacers and around the front of the toe box. And I later regretted that. That felt like more than I could handle in order to sort of compress all of those spaces together. So I might have actually just glued the three spacers first, and then snuck glue in along these edges. But it didn't really want to hold together, so I made sure that I added a bit more compression. So this time that's what I decided to do then, was just glue the spacer, hold that down until it cooled and held. And I had a little bit of flexibility around that band. And so I knew then that I could just sneak in some glue. And if you don't feel comfortable with your fingers being that close to the hot glue gun, you could get a butter knife or just some other tool that you could use to kind of pry that open. All right, so I'm sneaking glue in there and either holding it or taping it shut. Again, when I get to the next spacer, then I'll put glue on top of the spacer, hold that until it cools, and sneak more glue into the sides. So at some point I did realize though that the top half and the bottom half didn't match, so I've turned it over and I've traced around it. You can see a little pencil mark. I'm actually just gonna cut it with my scissors and hope for the best. But you should always take off less rather than too much. So, okay, well that's my final little pass with the glue on this shoe. So in the next video, I'm going to show you then how you can put the top half of the shoe and the back of the shoe onto the form. There's that nice little curve on the toe box. And you're ready to move on to the next step.